Celia said you wanted to see me, sir.
See you? See you, Brumpkin. I want to see you, hear you, and smell you.
I can come back later when you're feeling less frisky, sir.
Don't be ridiculous, Brumpkin. Come in, and sit down.
Do I have to, sir?
Well, if you wish to keep swanning about the office with that ponytail and those alligator-skin pumps you do, Brumpkin, yes. If you wish to keep sneaking off to the coffee room to drink pina coladas and playing Panda Pop on your cellular device, Brumpkin, then yes. If you wish to keep popping back here after dark to take weirdly high-contrast photographs of you dunking your testicles into the box of spare key fobs, then I would most certainly, Brumpkin, come into my office and park your flabby one.
Well, you make a compelling case. So, now that I'm sitting, what can I do for you?
Well, maybe, Brumpkin, it is not what you can do for me. After all, as my employee, you already do plenty for me already. You turn up at 8:30 a.m., you put on a tie, you spend most of your life here, you use phrases like, let's take that offline, and I don't have the bandwidth for that. You feel your soul slowly ebbing away, and you let it, all for your vain and ignorant pursuit of the grabby dollar. Oh, my dear Brumpkin, you already do plenty for me. Maybe I brought you here because it is something that I can do for you.
This doesn't involve ironing your slippers nude except for an apron again, does it, sir?
No, and what do you mean again?
Oh, you didn't know about that? Well, forget it. Never happened.
Well, anyway, Brumpkin, there's no easy way to put this, but I am a genie.
What, sir?
A genie, you know, lives in a bottle, grants wishes, big hat. A genie.
Oh, very funny, sir. I have work I can be getting on with, you know.
I am a genie, Brumpkin, and I assure you, I shaved, I put on a flannel suit, and I started this here accountancy firm, but I promise you, I am a genie.
Well, if you're a genie, sir, grant me a wish or something. Give me a full head of hair.
I am a genie, Brumpkin, not a barber, and sadly, because I haven't been using my wish-giving powers lately, they have faded from my grasp. I got so used to killing people's ambitions and the perverse rush that gave me that I needed more and more. I stopped giving and started taking. Giving can get so boring. No one ever gives you a wish in return. No one even offers you a cookie or something. I mean, Santa gets a fucking plate of cookies. I never get offered so much as a salted rice cake.
I could get you a salted rice cake, you know, if you're feeling underappreciated.
Salt the fucking rice cake, Brumpkin. I can buy all the sweet, salted, cheesy, or even armadillo-flavoured rice cakes I could possibly ever want.
So, if you enjoy this lifestyle, sir, why does it matter if you were, as you said, a genie?
Well, you see, I'm cursed. When it turns midnight on my 48th year on the planet, I turn into a small, rusted weasel statue commemorating the invention of the weasel trap by Mr. P. Berringham of North Gusset.
That's a very specific thing to turn into, sir.
Well, you see, it's because I've led such a selfish life. If I'd stayed a genie, I'd have come back as Dame Judi Dench's horse saddle. As it is, weasel ornaments await.
Makes sense. Well, in a world where any of this makes sense.
However, I've come up with a rather delicious plan.
Oh, no, sir.
Yes, sir. Basically, you and I swap clothes.
Here it comes.
I put on a fake mustache, I move into your apartment, and when the reincarnation goblin shows up to turn me into a pewter weasel award, I pretend to be you, and you pretend to be my cousin Alan.
Doesn't the reincarnation goblin have mystical powers to tell who you really are?
Who can tell? But I can be a very convincing actor. I played Peter Pan last year in Summerstock Theatre and garnered the review, "He wasn't completely awful when compared to the badly painted gazebo they hosted the thing in and the crummy petrol station sandwich I ate on my way over here," by a reviewer for the Coxwold Gazette.
The Coxwolds? Well, never mind that. How does any of this benefit me? You said earlier that you could give me something.
Well, I have this £10 Sainsbury's home-based gift card and this picture of my cousin Cecily, which I'll allow you to lick when I'm not looking.
She is quite a looker, sir.
Well, exactly. I mean, a man would have to be a fool to turn down this offer.
And I'm no fool, sir.
Well, you are pretty foolish, Brumkin, or you wouldn't have bought into my ruse, hook, line, and sinker. Actually, you're fired.
I'm what, sir?
You're fired.
What was all that genie stuff?
A ruse, a jape, a heap of subterfuge. I was fucking with you, Brumkin. Now kindly get out, you're fired.
Well, actually, sir.
Yes, Brumkin?
I'm not Brumkin at all. I'm the reincarnation goblin, and you're coming with me.
It's a fair cop.
And another thing, before I turn you into a weasel, you have to listen to this episode of the After Movie Diner.
Oh, that sounds unbearable.
It is.
You're listening to the After Movie Diner with your host, John Cross.
That's right, I am John Cross, and not, I repeat, not a lamppost. This week, we dispense with all the usual silliness and just request one single thing of you all. And I mean all of you. Yes, all of you go to Amazon and pre-order my co-host Jim Wallace's book of poetry, lyrics and stories, Are You Hurtling Towards God Knows What? Look for J.E.A. Wallace in your Amazon store, or to make it nice and simple, simply go over to aftermoviediner.com, because you all know where that is by now, and click the bloody great banner ad at the top of it. Jim is the unsung hero of the podcast, an absolutely fantastic gent and an excellent writer who deserves both your support and your cold hard cash. So scurry off now to Amazon and pick up a copy of Are You Hurtling Towards God Knows What? By J.E.A. Wallace, set to be released on December 4th from Unsolicited Press. That's right, head over to aftermoviediner.com, click the bloody great banner out at the top of it, and purchase Jim's book. You'll be supporting both him and the podcast, and his long suffering having to be my co-host. Anyway, to hear him being the best co-host around to me, Mr. Stupid Face, why don't you carry on listening to this show?
Well, hello. Hello, waiter. I'd like a cup of tea and a pair of socks.
Hang on, I'm going to move that over there. You're going to make that bloody awful noise with a plasticky menu. Anyway.
How do you want me to turn the pages?
I don't want you to turn the page. I want you to look through the page with your very soul and choose what you're having.
That's not what the page does to me.
Yeah. Hello, and welcome to, a somewhat brisk
and
wet New York City.
Wet-footed diner. Welcome to this episode of Wet Feet in a Diner.
Jim was wearing unsuitable shoes.
They said it was going to be a slight dusting.
Right.
The word dusting was in fact used.
Yeah, but you're wearing...
Dusting does not normally
You're wearing
mean...
what? Slip-on loafers? What are you wearing?
Well, they're not. I mean, they're,
They're slippers, basically.
They're sensible. No, they're
basically,
not.
you're wearing slippers.
No, they're sensible shoes.
Yeah, whereas
they're Clarks, actually.
Yeah,
Which over here is like, ooh, fancy.
Clarks,
get you with your Clarks.
Clarks slippers is what they are.
Clarks, ooh, brand. Clarks of London.
I, on the other hand, bought very sensibly just a week ago some all-weather Vans, and they've done me right up a treat. Nice and.
He is not currently a man.
No,
with wet feet.
With wet feet, I did not get a.
He's a man who thinks ahead.
I'm a man. Well, I was very lucky. Most of my winter stuff is in storage right now, except I managed to purchase a nice thick winter shirt, an all-weather pair of shoes, and my Toronto Maple Leafs scarf and gloves came in time. So, but literally they were mailed to me like yesterday. I got them. So had they been a day late, I'd be scuppered.
Good news for the cold-fingered.
Yes, well indeed, or the cold-necked.
Yes.
But here we are in Cozy Soup and Burger. It's another episode of the After Movie Diner. We have braved, yet again, weather and trying to trudge through an unprepared New York to bring you this episode, to bring you this very podcast that you're listening to.
Make the roads go up into the...
oh, wait a minute, everybody. Jim, who's never had a job in town planning, is about to tell you where every city is going wrong.
No, I'm just saying the road shouldn't go down where
what road are you talking about?
The pavement is. Well, because all the road goes up.
No, but what road are you talking about?
All roads, mate. Every single crosswalk in New York after it snows is an impassable lake.
Right.
It's ready?
Not yet, sir. Sorry.
Not quite yet.
Yeah. Please.
Do you know what you want? I'm torn between either getting the chili. I think I just want to cut, right? Because the bowl's probably enormous. I know I always get the chili, but
Yeah.
it's really good.
Listen, since that complaint we had, the
No, not since. I had something very adventurous last week. I had the vegetable quesadillas, and they were amazing.
no, but in
But
general,
go on, carry on with the point.
I was going to say
in general, apart from the specific example that I just mentioned.
yeah, the worm has turned, and you are
No
far
worms.
more boring than
No
I
worms.
am. I, on the other hand, am a culinary wizard of joy.
You
and,
right now
fun.
look like the front cover of a 70s folk album. No, the back cover. You've got a scarf, a beard, and one of those ridiculous
Newsboy
guitar
hat.
folk hats, like a
Newsboy
John Thompson
hat.
hat.
Newsboy.
It's not a. It's a
It's literally
Richard
called-
Thompson hat. You're not a Richard Thompson.
You're talking about Digits.
No, I'm not. You're a Richard Thompson. He's a folk singer.
I don't know who that is.
He's a folk singer
But
who looks like you.
The name of this hat is literally the Newsboy.
Right. I'm not going to argue with you on the newsboy hat.
It's called a Newsboy.
You are a
hat.
man who knows your hats.
That's
People are
exactly
getting into
what-
arguments with you about hats and fools.
They lose.
Fools and blackguards,
They lose.
mate.
Fools and blackguards.
Fools and blackguards.
And you will lose. You
Grilled
will
Swiss
lose.
cheese and turkey on rye with tomato, bacon, and fried onions. Sounds good, but kind of messy. I think I'm just going to get the chili.
They do have a baked potato.
Or bowl. I think bowl, right? I mean, I'm hungry and it's cold. Bollocks the melted cheese. They may as well just paint the top of it yellow. It's not as if it adds any bleeding flavour.
No, it's literally a square of orange oil.
I don't know why they bother. What are you thinking then, mate? I know what I'm thinking. I'm thinking, I wish I'd worn proper shoes. To be fair, Teresa did tell me before I went out, are you sure you don't want to wear winter boots? I just ignored her.
Yeah, of course
And I
you
have
do.
learned over the years, never ignore a New Yorker when they tell you what to wear when you
Right,
go outside.
of course.
Just don't do it.
Well, because you are, the worst person imaginable when it comes to this kind of stuff. Because you just assume you know better.
It's not that I assume I know better.
No, it's you assume you know better, don't even argue with it. You're like, it's not that I assume I know better, but here's something I know better about knowing
No,
better
I'm admitting, flat out admitting.
that you were an Egypt when it
No,
came to shoes.
I feel like my fate, right? Here's what it is. I feel like my fate is forever poised on a knife edge. You know what I mean? Between everything's fine and everything's garbage.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's getting existential.
No, I'm not. I'm just saying. So when I step outside and Teresa says to me, probably want to wear boots because it's going to be cold outside, I have to decide when I step outside with my not boots on,
Right.
what side of the razor's edge am I going to fall? Am I going to fall on everything's basically fine or everything's garbage and I wish I put the boots on? And this is the decision that I have to make.
But put it this way: if you put what kind of boots are they? They're like big Wellington winter boots, or are they?
No,
just
they're big, proper winter. I mean, they're kind of like the size and shape of walking boots, whatever. They're not like
right.
moon
So
boots.
if you'd worn them,
Yeah.
you wouldn't have looked stupid or anything.
No, it wasn't about that. I could get into why, but it would be so boring.
Right.
It might put you into a coma.
Okay.
You might just die.
So, as we talked about last time, although we put it at the end of the episode, why don't we put a little bit up front, just a kind of 10-minute taster of what have we watched this week? What have we watched? What have we watched? What have we watched this week?
What we watched this week. What we watched this week. The public wanna hear us speak about what we watched this week. Oh, don't tell me you don't wanna hear us speak about what we watched this week. I won't believe ya if you tell me no, you don't wanna hear me speak about what we watched this week. What we watched this week.
Bah,
Oh,
that's the little,
the haunting
that's the
of
little jingle.
the haunting of
No,
Hill
that's
House.
a TV show. I want a movie.
I don't know if I've watched any movies. This
All
week.
right, let me know about the haunting of Hill House, the thing that everyone is bleating on
Well,
about.
this is very good and very scary. You should watch it. You should give it a go.
That's what everyone's telling me.
It's just, it all depends on how you feel about haunted house movies, obviously. But
Is there a lot of slamming doors and children with black eyes?
no, it's not like that. Actually, it's much more. It's much kind of creepy. It's like a proper haunted house thing. It's like creepier, and there are ghosts in it, and they are
Right.
scary ghosts. But they're also like one thing, for example, which is not a spoiler because actually I kind of wished I'd known before I started watching it, which is there are a lot of ghosts throughout the series that you don't but they don't draw attention to. It's like they're having a normal conversation in like a room in the house, and I only found out later that you know, in front of a window or by a curtain or something, there was like a character there the whole time. Someone like peering, you know what I mean, like stuff that you wouldn't. I'd have to go back and watch again.
Like in Three Men and a Little Lady or whatever it is.
Three Men?
Yes.
Yes, I'm ready. Yeah.
I'll tell you in a minute.
How big's a cup of chili?
Just a cup, sir.
So just like that much?
Get the bowl. Have at it.
No, I'm just going to get the cup. Just a cup of chili.
Oh my goodness.
With
Dullest man alive.
cheese. I'm going to get a cup of chili with cheese.
Yeah, for you?
Yeah, can I get the chicken fingers, please? Can I get that with a side of the Idaho steak fries? But can I get it with the gravy and cheese on top of the fries?
And can I get a cup of English breakfast tea with milk?
Nothing to drink for you?
No.
Thank you.
Thank
you very much.
Yeah, so for a long time, and I forget whether it was...
Well, if he could have spit in my face, I think he would have done.
Yeah, exactly. He was most cheery.
When I said cup, I thought he was going to vomit on me.
He was like, oh, it's more than my job's worth to give
More
this.
cold people seeking nourishment, the bastards.
No, but seeking tiny nourishment.
I don't think cup's like...
It's a thimble. You're going to get a thimble
I know,
of chili.
I think a cup is actually...
There's going to be one chili bean in it and like a corner of cheese. I know.
Oh, you've seen him already.
I have, yeah.
So, okay, but
So
I'm trying to think,
in one of the Three Men and a Little movies,
Right.
there was a rumor for the longest time that there was a ghost in the window in one of the scenes.
Oh, yeah?
It turns out to just be a cardboard cutout of one of Ted Danson's characters, but everyone for the longest time thought it was a ghost, even though it wasn't, obviously.
Well, you really are full of Three Men and a Little Lady related stories.
Yeah, it was.
You know what I'd say? Too full.
Too far. Too much.
I'd lose them, mate.
Too much.
Do you know what I mean?
Taking up-
I'd free up some space in that brain of yours by getting rid of all of your Three Men and a Little Lady
I could do that.
anecdotes.
I could do that. You
You know what?
I could do that.
I'd go further. I'd say you should.
I could do that.
I think you should.
I could do that. But then the winter evening anecdotes just wouldn't be the same.
Well, that is true. Well,
Have you not seen that I'm advertising my fireside chats where I talk exclusively about Ted Danson movies?
Actually, I'd listened to episode 1.
Episode one of Fireside
I feel
Chat.
like after that, you'd be kind of skating on. I mean, what Ted Danson movies worth talking about are there? And there it is.
Well, there's Coming to America with him and Whoopi Goldberg.
No, there isn't.
Not Coming to America, coming to... There's one that's called... There's one with him and Whoopi Goldberg.
I know the one you mean.
Which is called like America something.
Made in America?
Maybe? Don't know. Maybe in America?
I think before you launch... Thank you very much. You can't even look at me. He can't even look. He put the tea down. And he turned his head away from me like I was... I don't know.
Yeah. He loathes who you are, both as a person and as an object.
It's like tangible
Tangible
loathing.
hate.
Do you know what I mean?
Tangible loathing.
Yeah. This is probably a cup of boiling spit as opposed to water.
But you're right. Before I embark on my Ted Danson fireside chat,
There's a 10-second pause before you can name a movie, and then you name the wrong movie. I feel like I'm just saying I could use a polish. That's all. You know what I mean? I could just use a little bit of a. You know what I mean?
what other movies was
Back
he in?
into development. That's what I'm saying.
Figure it out first before launching headway into a whole series.
That would be my advice. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, there was a bit of information for you.
Oh, I saw Jurassic World.
The first one or the second one?
The second one.
Oh, I haven't seen the second one. I've only seen the first one.
The second one's not bad. I mean, it's mostly bollocks.
Have you seen the
obviously.
first one?
Yeah, I didn't like the first one at all.
Oh, I like the first one because the dinosaurs fought at the end.
I like the second one.
I hated all the human characters. They were paper thin and awful.
Well, I like the second one because they decided to make a horror film in the last half hour.
Yeah.
In a mansion being stalked by like a monster, and the monster was a dinosaur, and it was kind of silly,
Right.
But sort of quite fun. It had like rain and like lightning and like things coming into the. It was like a fun like what if we make it a horror movie?
Nice.
And that was kind of fun enough that I enjoyed it.
Genre film is back in a big bad way.
Yes, it is. Well, this was one of them that we went to see
Tonight, but we're not.
Is that how we're going to do our?
We're not talking about it later yet. We're talking about what did we see this week.
I'm sorry,
I did the
mate.
jingle
I jumped
and
the
everything.
gun, mate.
I did the jingle and everything.
I jumped the
It's
gun.
hopeless
I
trying
was
to...
looking for a segue.
See,
I'm always looking for segues. You know me.
When people... Well,
I'm
yeah,
a segue
it's
searcher.
because you hate walking. You just want to do one of those wheelie...
Oh dear, we're making a segue joke.
Oh, I tried to.
Oh, dear.
I tried to segue into a segue joke and it was horrible.
Yeah,
I should have just
had
not
a segue
bothered.
crash there.
I did. That's what I did.
Title to a segue.
The battery ran out. But every time, you know, when people tune into this on a weekly basis and they're like, God, it's a load of old
religiously.
cobblers, isn't it?
Yeah. They
a lot
tune
of
in
old
just to say that. They tune in to listen, just to go, what a load of rubbish.
They sit back, they hear the nonsense, they go, what a load of old rubbish, then they fall asleep, then they wake up and go, well...
What am I doing with my life?
Yeah, right.
Wake up!
Wake up. And then they wake up on a subway to find that they're sat opposite someone that they work with. It's a really awkward scene, and they have to shoot themselves.
So she's fine now. So
shoot themselves in the face. That's bleak. That's super bleak. She's fired.
Yeah, she got fired. Not because of that. Not because I
She
went to
got
the boss and
fired,
went,
no.
listen, I can't be, do you know what I mean, passing awkward subway delays in a tunnel with her anymore.
Yeah.
So
Get rid of her.
Get rid.
Yeah.
I'm not like Tom Cruise. I bet Tom Cruise would do that.
Yeah,
You know what I
Tom
mean?
Cruise
If
would.
Tom Cruise was like on the tube on the way to a shoot in the morning, and like I don't know, the second AD was sat opposite me like, fire him.
Fire him. Can't be
making
accidentally
small talk with people in the
catching.
morning.
Can't be accidentally catching eyes with a person sat opposite me. Also, can we just point out the rather elaborate window painting that the diner seems to have gone in for? It's gone for like a. They've gone for like a snowy winter's day with like trees, but it's almost like a Bob Ross painting come to life. It's quite
I noticed that
evocative.
the diners do that, and I do approve.
Yeah, it's not like in England, the Little Chef or something. They just get some bastard with one of those spray snow cans, and he'd just write like Xmas or something on a window, and then die.
Happy Xmas plebs.
Yeah. Whereas here, I mean, look at the way Merry Christmas is written on that glass over there. It's positively festive and beautiful.
It is festive, mate.
It's wonderful.
It is. It's lovely.
So I wish everyone could see it, but sadly this is an
Also,
audio.
can I just point out, I quite like the fact that
We've derailed this show yet again.
No, it was Halloween.
Yeah.
That's what I really like about America. It's Halloween.
Yeah.
You know, up until October 31st.
Yeah.
And then by the time they've ramped up the Christmas decorations, it's snowing outside, and it basically feels like,
Christmas.
we are coming up to Christmas. I know it's only like November or whatever.
Yeah, but you forget
still,
that last year it was still like 70 degrees in November, and then like
I do
60
forget, mate.
degrees.
I do
in
forget because I don't care.
Don't care. Let's not talk about the weather again, ever again. In fact, you're banned from talking. Really, I'll just do the whole show myself. You occasionally.
That's fine.
You occasionally.
That should be a winner. We can get more segue jokes.
You should
More, do
occasionally.
you remember last year when it was 70, 75 degrees, I think it was? Of course, a bit later on, it went down to 60.
I could talk about all.
Down to
I
60.
could talk about all.
And then a week later, it went down to 55.
I could talk about all the Ted Danson movies. I
Yeah,
know so
there we go.
much about.
There we go.
But no.
You're a Lennon solo album waiting to happen.
Every time we try and have, like, every time I try and put order amongst the chaos, and I try and formulate, well, how about we just do 10 minutes of a segment? The segment then just gets derailed.
Well, I said Haunted of
You said there were people hiding in
Jurassic
curtains.
World. No, I'm saying it was good. It wasn't like you turn around and there's a spooky child with black eyes. It wasn't that. It was like a menace and dread, and it was more about this family.
Enough of you. I want to talk about. I want to talk about Paris, Texas, which I watched this week.
Okay.
Which is
For the first time?
No, I've seen it before. But Dean Stockwell and Harry Dean Stanton in a Wim Wenders movie written by.
Can I just say that I think everyone's tuned in because they want to hear you talk about a Wim Wenders movie. No, come on, hit us with your reactions to the existential dread that was raised in you by his quiet but firm grasp of the essential emptiness at the heart of the American dream.
No, but you said it better than I could, mate. Well done. With Harry Dean Stanton.
What you want to say is, I
yeah.
like his face. It's weird looking, and he looks old and gribbly.
Yeah.
And it's about an old gribbly bloke wandering around being old and gribbly, going, is there any point in being old and gribbly? And the guitar says, yeah.
What's amazing about Paris, Texas, is that you look at it and you go, oh, it's actually a fairly like simple drama about brothers and family and fathers and children and life and the America and all the rest of it. And then you suddenly realize that actually it's a fantasy film, because in it we're meant to believe that Harry Dean Stanton and Natasha Kinski found each other attractive enough to have a child.
Oh yeah, I forgot that happened.
And Natasha Kinski is like 26 in it. And Harry Dean Stanton is like 60. Which, look, that's absolutely fine. And Harry Dean Stanton is the man. There is no doubting it. He is, let's say, America's face. If anyone,
I mean,
if anyone
it's
was
America's face now.
the face of America, it was
Yeah.
Harry Dean Stanton.
Yeah.
Craggy, scarred, wrinkled, and yet you can't look away. And possibly it's yelling at you to get off its lawn. So that's what I mean. Like this guy just came in the orange hat. It's definitely America's face.
Yeah, good call.
Yeah, I think he's got one of America's faces. One of the faces of
One of the faces of America, of which there are many.
But I would strongly suggest, if you haven't watched it, watch it. I really enjoyed it.
It's a very good film. I heartily agree with you.
What else did I watch this week? I don't know. I almost care. All right, so we just went.
No,
to
I was
see-
listening.
No, whatever.
Oh, great. Thanks very much.
You like some honey mustard?
Yes, please. Honey mustard would be great.
The care that that's been put together with.
Yeah. I mean, that's wow.
Also, I said thank you, and you went, uh-huh. Did you hear that one? Thanks very much. You went, uh-huh.
Yeah. Wow. I tell you what, you have to really admire the fact that they honestly believe that this is acceptable. You have to kind of admire it. They've literally taken
My favourite bit is how much gravy you've got.
next to none.
I think you can ask for more gravy, mate, because that's dismal.
No, it's fine.
Really? You're not going to ask for more? Come on. You've never been in America long enough. There's no gravy on your... You're supposed to have it with gravy,
They're
right?
very put, to be honest.
Is it that bad?
Oh, just a bit hard in the middle.
If it's not cooked, mate, you need to send it back.
It's all right.
Now, come on. He obviously thinks we're fucking tourists and not worthy of a tip. The only reason mine's going to be edible is pulled out of a huge pot that's boiling.
This is fine.
All right.
And there's gravy underneath.
How long have you been in New Yorker? Would a New Yorker really stand for uncooked chips and no gravy?
No, but I've been here 10 years in March.
All right. Right, it's your call. I'm happy to get them to take it back.
Fine. So, this week, we went to see, I don't know why, I've suddenly become Michael Caine. But this week, Master Bruce, we went to see Overlord.
Yes, we did. It was that, or what was the other choice?
Widows.
Oh, yeah, okay. Which I would have been happy with.
No, but we went to see Overlord.
We did, yeah.
No one cares about the movie we didn't go and see.
Good point, mate, good point. I see you easing right back into the podcast groove.
Well, the insulting you and just be generally belligerent groove. Yeah.
Seems to work. Oh, look at that, you got a tiny bit of gravy in the end of your chip there, you lucky
I am
sausage.
going to ask for more gravy. And where's this honey mustard coming from? Belize?
Yeah.
Thank you. Could I get a little pot of gravy, please?
Oh, your tip is going to be so small. Just the smallest tip imaginable.
What is wrong with him? What happened to
don't
him
know.
tonight?
I don't know. Us, presumably. Maybe he brought the wrong shoes to work.
It's the wrong shoes, Gromit. And you're Wallace.
Could be something there. Isn't, but could be.
Could be. And you're bald with big ears.
Do I have big ears?
No,
I
but
do kind of have big-ish ears. It could be that they're growing.
No, but-
Old men's ears do grow.
I tell you what you have, though. You have, like, wonderfully bizarrely shaped ears. They're not
Do I?
big,
I've never thought of it like that before.
but they're kind of, thank you so much, they're kind of beautiful in their own way.
Really?
Kind of, yeah, no, they're kind of, they're wonderfully knobbly and cartoon-like, with a shine, and,
Well, that's good.
yeah.
He says, not thinking it's good at all. So,
He definitely phlegmed in my gravy. So
no, fortunately, he wasn't in there that long.
So, we went to see Overlord.
We did.
Which is a World War II movie
Yes.
in which the Germans have been experimenting with a super drug that they found flowing in the waters of France underneath the church.
Yes.
And that's really it.
Yeah, that's basically it. And a team of American paratroopers have been tasked to knock the tower out to help with the D-Day landings, and the tower happens to be on top of the church where these experiments are taking place. And that's basically the story, is them discovering what's going on and getting caught up in a...
And what was interesting about it was that it could have just been a movie
Yeah.
about guys going to knock out a tower so that the D-Day landings could happen.
Yep, it could have been that, yeah.
They added the extra thing, just the extra genre soupçon de zombie, just to really like
Yeah.
push it over the edge.
Well, so other than a bit that was about, I don't know, 20 minutes in, 25 minutes in, there was a bit where it dragged for about 10, 15, maybe 20 minutes.
Your understanding of time
Yeah.
in movies is way off.
Well, what do you mean?
It started to drag about 45 minutes into it,
Oh, okay.
for like the middle 20,
Okay, so just
and then it picked up again. Just before he jumped into the back of the truck and got into the church and ended up meeting all
actually,
the zombies.
I found that it only really pulled out of the drag when they injected Blokey with the thing, with the crazy serum.
Up in the top of
Up
the
in the
house.
thing, and then I started to really. That was the first time when that happened. That was the first time I really started to enjoy the movie.
Oh, you didn't like it when he had like, there was like a really funny like haunted house bit where he was sort of trapped in the thing running about and stuff was like, steam was blowing at him and stuff was coming. You didn't like all that stuff?
I'd like to go back and watch it again because at that point I don't know, it felt... They were holed up in the thing. And there was a bit like, you know, that thing sometimes in movies where they're holed up somewhere and they have to go to the you know, whatever, the place where the climax image is going to happen, and they're going to come back, and it's a bit like back and forth, and it feels a bit... I don't really buy that he's there, but I got it. It all made sense in retrospect.
Here's my big problem talking about this movie.
Okay.
It was fine. Like, it was fine. It didn't blow my socks off. It didn't surprise me.
No.
It didn't...
What did you like about it? I really like Kurt Russell's kid. I could have easily watched a lot more of him.
Who was Kurt Russell's kid?
That's Blondie. Did you not
Did you
not see how Kurt Russell he was?
No.
You should go back and watch again. The bit like, you know, with the bit when they're in the plane right at the beginning.
Yeah.
And he's sat by the window.
Yeah.
And he looks up at them. He looks exactly like Kurt Russell.
Oh, really?
He's
I didn't know
Russell's
that.
kid. Yeah.
I had no idea who any of these people were. They were all new characters to me. The only guy I knew was the sergeant who came out in the beginning on the plane.
Oh, yeah.
And did the speech, who's sort of he's sort of like a budget Samuel L. Jackson.
Yeah, he crops up. Yes, he is kind of.
But he crops up in a lot of stuff, and I like him generally as an actor. But he was meant to be like the cameo that showed up and then disappeared. Most of the cast, I would say, then are unknowns apart from Russell's kid. Then, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I mean, Russell's kid's not exactly a star. I mean, before this, I've only seen him in an episode of Black Mirror, a good episode of Black Mirror, and he's in an AMC show called Lodge 49, which I really want to see. I think it might be up your street.
Bruce Campbell's in an episode or two.
Okay, well, it's about... Well, it's Kurt Russell.
Break up your stuff. Sorry. This is just going to sound awful.
Sorry. Anyway, so that's all I know him from. But he was great, and I could watch loads more of him. And I liked... It just took a while to get going. In a sense, it was very like the 60s, like Nazisploitation, or what do they call it?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, and
so here's my thing.
Okay.
They decided, as I said before, this could be a war movie even without the genre element, right?
Yeah.
The genre element is just going to push it over the edge. And that's fine and noble, and it's fine to be like, can you make a quasi-realistic and or dramatic genre film, right? A totally legitimate thing to do. The special effects and the acting especially make it very realistic and very authentic and very well done. I'm not a huge fan of whoever shot the film. The camera work was a little bit like pick a style.
Yeah, that's true.
But in general, I'm like, all right, it's 2018. I can't expect too much from a genre film, and this one actually like delivered. Like especially the opening sequence, coming out of the plane and putting you right in the heart of the action with all the explosions going off and the gunshots
him
ripping
like
the thing.
falling upside down.
Yeah, it was really well done.
Cool.
Really, really well done. And I have to give it credit for that, even if I was a bit like, oh, for fuck's sake, keep the camera still with you. My big problem was this.
Right.
I don't think either story, the way it was done, the way it was presented, either individual story was compelling enough. And I felt like they'd slammed it together in the hope that it would somehow become compelling.
Right.
I feel like if the story was an entire plane of paratroopers, basically are whittled down to 4, like 3.5 guys, because of a series of accidents and issues and bombs and whatever. And they have to take down the tower that saves D-Day. You would make that movie in a particular way, right? So, a bit like Hunter-Killer, right? So in Hunter-Killer, it's all like, this has to happen or the world is doomed, right? And they made sure that the music was pounding and the camera was whizzing past things and the clock was ticking and dun 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 dun. What are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? Like that was happening, right? So that was the pace of it. In a genre film about like, Nazi zombies or whatever, or Nazi super soldiers, or Nazi.
I mean, Nazi zombies basically, but ones that can run.
Well, they're more like reanimated.
Actually, they are, aren't they? It is more that because there's no.
They're more like it's exactly reanimated. It's a serum, only it's orange in this instead of green. That not only reawakes the dead, but when they come back, come back like super angry and super strong.
If you had to describe the movie, you'd call it Band of Brothers meets Reanimator, because that's literally what it is.
That's literally what it is.
Yeah.
But I feel like if you were going to make that movie, the scares and the genre elements and the gore and various other things, the creep factor would start much earlier. Now they did a good job in this with like the aunt and with various like little nods and things of something is afoot. And obviously because marketing is the worst thing on the planet right now, they spoiled it all in the trailer anyway.
Yeah.
And I almost feel that was to its detriment, because I was sat there going, wait a minute, I thought there were Nazi zombies in this. What the fuck's going on? Like, there was a
part of it. You're right, actually. Because the thing is, when it comes to like a J.J. Abrams thing, right, especially like this, he's obviously going with something particular. It's not like...
Well, he produced it.
Right. But it's his production. But I'm saying, what attracts him to a project, right? As in, like, why
and he is a genre fan, to be fair.
Right. What I'm saying is, what attracted him presumably was, what it would have sold... Like, this is what you've got, you've got no stars, pretty low budget, and you could tell that the point of it was supposed to be, it looks like a straight-up war film. You even give it they don't call it, they give it the name of the actual, Second World War operation.
Right.
They call it Overlord, right? So it's about the war rather than, there's no clue as to what's going on. And as you say, there's like, they find the weird dog thing, there's like something not right with the aunt. Why are they killing the villagers and taking them away? Like, there's this thing where they're like, as you say, they're trying to set up. Now, how it works, which is locking them in a house basically while weird shit happens all around them, right? That would work really well, and then you take them to the place,
right?
But as you rightly point out, we knew it was about Nazi zombies because we'd seen the trailer. So you're going, where's the Nazi? I know it's Nazi zombies.
Right.
When's that gonna?
And I think if you watch this like like The Descent.
Yeah.
When I went to see The Descent, I thought it was just a claustrophobic horror about cave divers.
Right.
I had no idea there were monsters in it at all. I just had no idea. So when that happened, I was like, holy shit, fuck. Like it really blew me out of my seat.
Right.
And I feel like, nothing stays a secret anymore in this world, unfortunately. But it would have been bloody nice to have just gone see
Wouldn't it
this
have been good?
movie.
Like, to go, oh, it's apparently some kind of war movie.
Yeah,
and
but
supposed to be quite good.
But I'll say this as well, though, is while I think there was some attempt in the script and in the making of the movie to tell both stories concurrently and hope that two exciting stories led up to a really exciting whole. And while I do think that didn't quite work, and I can't really put my finger on it too much, I think that the first failing of the film was the soundtrack. There was not enough of a soundtrack. There needed to be either a booming genre-style war soundtrack,
Right.
that then led its way into creepy, scary, what's going on in the castle soundtrack.
Right.
Or, if we're all going to know that it's a genre film in the making, and it's in the style of something like The Thing, which starts off small and slowly builds throughout into some big madness, then go full genre with the soundtrack. Go full, go synth, go Carpenter, go something with the soundtrack.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It had one thing, which was it had a dum 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 with a kind of, which came up in the soundtrack occasionally, and I kept wanting it to be yes, okay, and then nothing again. And I know that's a really odd thing, but it was so well made and so well acted, and the special effects are fantastic, and the idea was solid. I mean, it's a bit computer gamey, but anyway, the idea is solid. And I'm all for sleeper hit genre films coming out at the end of the summer and doing, or end of autumn rather, and doing gangbusters. This has done pretty well, right?
I think it only just came out, right?
I thought this had been a fairly decent hit, I thought.
I don't know.
Oh, okay. But I'm all for
the cinema was pretty busy. It depends when it came out. If it came out last week, I guess, because if it came out Friday last week, we're at the end of the first week's run, but the cinema was busy enough that it'll probably get a bit more.
I just felt I'm all for these kinds of movies. I completely appreciated the way it was put together. I don't know if it was because I'd seen the trailer beforehand, or if it was the theatre we saw it in, which was sort of weirdly light and loud. I found it very light in the theatre, which bothered me as well. There was also some sequences that I found really dull looking, it could have been more contrasty and brighter. I thought it was a valiant effort. I certainly prefer it over any of the other horror / thriller zombie movie things that have come out in the last few years.
Yeah, that's true.
But
I could have used a bit of fun. Like when she got the flamethrower.
Yeah.
And she did it in the zombie with the flamethrower. That was super cool. And then she threw the flamethrower away. And I thought, no. Keep the flamethrower.
Right.
Use the flamethrower a number of times while you're running away.
Yeah.
Why are we... You got a French chick with a flamethrower taking out zombie Nazis. Why wouldn't we do that more than once?
Right.
You know what I mean? In fact, I could watch a whole film of a good-looking French chick with a flamethrower taking out zombie Nazis. Zombie Nazis.
Right. And I think
I'm no film producer, as you know, mate.
Right.
But it seems to me
that's where the money lies.
That could be where the money is, right?
And I think that's the problem, is that I think it gets bogged down in its seriousness, and the couple of occasions that it references other films. So there was a bit, for example, where she was running through, she puts the boy in the tunnel to get away, her little brother in the tunnel to get away, and she's left being chased by the super Nazi who's all melty and weird. And he's chasing around the thing, and there was a sequence that you remember in Evil Dead 2 when the Force is chasing Ash, and he like runs through the cabin, and you see like the back of the cabin, and and then finally he dances out the way, and you find out that he's gone down into the hatch. There was a sequence where the camera literally mimicked that, not in a particularly good way, in a very lazy way, but like her action and the way the camera went round the corner through a corridor and out the other way, was completely lifted. And then likewise with the flamethrower and the thing, you've got hints of Ripley, you've got hints of Kurt Russell at the end of the thing, you've got like there's lots of like little nods. But because it was so intent on like maintaining this weird seriousness right up until you have Russell's kid and the Nazi guy just fucking beating the hell out of each other and sticking hooks in each other and whatever, where it does kind of go full blown at that point. But because it's trying to hang on to, well, this could be a serious war drama, you know, it forgets to have fun, and the occasional moments that it does remember to have fun, they stick out to the point where you're like, well, I've seen that before. Whereas if halfway through the movie it was French chick in leather jacket with flamethrower taking out zombie Nazis, and it happened multiple times, the movie itself would begin to own it. It wouldn't be like some iconic thing that you've stolen from somewhere else and just put in your movie. It would be something where you're like, oh, I guess that's this movie. Right? And I think that's the danger of like referencing anything. You either have to go completely full tilt at it and just go, we're aware it's a genre trait to have an empowered, strong woman with some implausibly large killing device, killing a bunch of zombies. We know we've seen that before. How do we do that our way and just do that for a third of the movie?
Right.
Much better to do that than it is, like you say, do the one-off thing where all that leaves me thinking is, A, I want more of that, and B, oh, they wanted to do Kurt Russell at the end of the thing meets Ripley from Alien too, like, or Aliens.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you on the soundtrack. I'm with you that it did nearly lose me because it had a lot of good work. Even the bit where they just put the Overlord title over it, and that was it. And it was just so 70s.
Yeah.
And the bit at the plane was great, him coming down, and all the stuff with the sergeant and Russell and the mine, the whole sequence right up until they get to the house, right? Him running through the trenches, something's not right, and the dog, everything's perfect.
Right.
So here's my thing, right? Here's my suggestion. What kind of bothered me?
By the way, I did really like it.
Yes, I really
but
liked
I just can't.
I really liked it too. But here's my
I can't be
problem.
enthusiastic about it. That's the difference.
No,
I can't
agree.
be passionate about it.
We can be enthusiastic about Rampage and Hunter Killer, but there was a bit in the movie, right? I didn't. You've got this. You've set this thing up, right? Where there's something really weird going on. You know, you've got two things happening at once, like you say, right? We've got to somehow take the tower down, and something weird's happening in the church,
Right.
Which, by the way, they could have leaned into the church thing a bit more. It looked more like a castle. It was just corridors and
Right.
You know what I mean? They could have been
There
a
were
bit
some
more.
gravestones on the wall, like a mausoleum, but that was
But you know what I mean? They could. It was just like cells and like the lab wasn't very imaginative. It was just like a kind of a circle and some tables. There wasn't a lot of set design. You know what I mean?
Well, that was
Not
the
that
other,
I normally come over and really go, well, the set design was very mediocre.
But that was the other problem, is that I almost feel like, oh, you've done an R-rated Captain America story, because like there was so much. It was almost too polished. Like it was almost too. Sets we've seen before, stunts we've seen before.
But so here's my thing, right?
There's one truly original bit in it, which was him hanging off the hook and pulling himself off the hook, which was truly disgusting.
Yeah. Actually, no, the thing that I would say was the most original thing that I've not seen before was when the guy in the room, which is my favourite sequence, and my head hurts and he headbutts the pillar and breaks it.
Yeah.
And then he like throws his head back and then breaks his own neck. And his head's like flopping over, and his throat is like a bent tube, and it was like, oh my god, that's so hideous, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And his like bones like jutting up, and then he like throws his head back, and his bones are still like jutting out of his. That was super cool. I like that. But anyway, listen, because I want to go back to the thing you said about having the two stories parallel. So the whole point about, like, your Where Eagles Dare, like, there's a place we've got to get to, right? There's the tower.
Right.
Most of the movie, or, like, the exciting bit of the movie is getting to the tower.
Right.
Right? How do we get there? What's our plan? Plan's going to go wrong, or whatever. But it's like an exciting journey to get there. You have to, like, go through some stuff. And if what's waiting there is, this weird, zombie laboratory or whatever,
Right.
then the problem is the zombie laboratory needs to be brought in earlier on in the movie, so it's zombie laboratories, and now we know where we are, because that's what you do, right?
Right.
In that movie. So you've got one movie where, we don't get to the bit at the end until the fucking end. It's got to be, we've got to fight to get there. That's how the rhythm of that movie works. And the other movie, they're making zombies in the laboratory. The rhythm of that is you bring the zombie laboratory in quite early,
right?
Because your movie's moments have been made up of people being killed by zombies, right? So you need to know where the zombies come from and how's this working then. There's no like, where are the zombies coming from? It's like, that's not the movie, right? So the problem you have when you put those two movies together is that we've got to get to the tower. We're holed up in here while we're coming up with the plan. And then he just like jumps into a truck. I mean, I liked he was running away from a dog rather than shoot the dog. That was kind of fun. But he just ends up in the church, wandering around. And I felt like, that's kind of a betrayal of the movie you've been making right up until this point, where it's all about how we're going to get to this place. They didn't have to fight to get anywhere. They just were there. All their peril was when they were in the place.
Right,
they could have used a little bit of peril getting there.
Right. But
that was my issue. The rhythm was all off for me in the beginning was great, and the end was great, but the middle was all off.
Whereas, weirdly, I enjoyed that bit, because I was like, yes, throw him into the belly. It was a stream of consciousness. It was like, I'm running away from this thing, the dog comes at me, I'm going to run away from the dog, I see a truck, I'm going to climb in the truck, wait, oh no, the truck's going into the castle, then I've got to hide, then I've got to get out, then I've got to not be seen, then I've got to go through this, wait a minute, there's a head talking to me and it has no body. Like, it was a stream of consciousness thing that was like more in tune with if it was a genre film, and that's what I mean. Is like,
I agree.
What you have to imagine, where this movie would have been 99% successful, would literally have been, you wouldn't have minded that sequence if you had no idea it was zombie Nazis. If you thought it was just like, he's out there, he's being hunted.
That's true.
He witnesses them burning some people alive. Then suddenly you realise he's going back to the castle, and he's in a van full of dead bodies. That would have ramped up the. But again, that's where you needed a soundtrack.
Yeah,
that's
true.
Where you needed.
Yeah, that's fair.
Like a dun 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 dun.
You're right.
Dun,
When you say
dun,
it, like that, you're right. It made sense within the movie. Maybe there's also a part of it that when you're watching a genre movie, right?
It's like when I first saw Dog Soldiers, and I didn't really realise that there was going to be werewolves in it.
Yeah,
it was just I
didn't either. That was a very successful
super great. Oh, and that's another thing I thought. They bothered to go, okay, we're going to have the black soldier, the Jewish soldier, the clearly guy from the Bronx soldier, and a lot of cliche things, but didn't bother to write any of them, any lines anyone cared about. Think about Dog Soldiers. 2/3 of Dog Soldiers, because of the budget, is them sitting around in the room talking about stuff with like colloquialisms and jokes and banter and insults and whatever, interspersed with like, thrilling, horror, grungy, what's around that corner scares. This doesn't have any, like, even the Italian-American guy who was all like, I like playing pool and playing cards and bada bada bing.
Yeah, he was obnoxious.
Right, but he didn't have any, no one had any lines.
No, you're right. Yeah.
It was, and I think if you're going to spend that much time, like it was, it sounds like I'm knocking it. It was really well put together. It knew what it wanted to be. It was fine, but it just didn't rev my engine. That's all I can say. It just didn't rev my engine. And I can point to two things. And I think it's lack of. If you're making a genre film, and it doesn't matter if it's a war film or if it's a thing, give the lines. Put the lines in there. Put the one-liners. Put the Sarge, I wish I was home on the farm speech. Do something. Do anything that is from that genre. And likewise, when it comes to like Russell's kid kicking ass and trying to get rid of the Nazi and blah, 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 throw in a few, Snake Plissken or Ash William lines. Like, not rip them off, but like throw in a few. What did he say when he was like, isn't it wonderful to have the German was like, isn't it wonderful to have the blood of eternity through your veins? He was like, no, actually it isn't. And I'm like, wait, what? That's the line? Like, there's a fucking line there. I mean, I don't know what it is right now, but there's a line there where he then, I don't know, shoves a rocket launcher in his face and blows his head off or something. Also, the shooting at the gas canister was incredibly clumsily edited. Like, just kick it out there, have the guy go, whoop, and then have it blow up. Like, it was way too long and slow. Like,
also, how does he die? Like, it wasn't that far away from it. Again, it wasn't staged right.
Oh, everyone was superhuman, even if they hadn't had the serum. I mean, the black guy would have been dead an hour ago. The number of like falls, punches, throat throttles. I mean, he would have shattered his knees in like multiple sequences. At one point, he was picked up like by a neck and thrown through a window into a table and across a hard concrete floor. You're dead, mate. That's it. Your spine's gone. You can be like, oh, it's a serious war drama with a zombie in it, but like, he's dead. Unless you're going to tell me that he's, superhuman.
I did like, okay, so...
And that's the other problem. With look, I love that there are genre films being made and I will go see them.
We will continue to go see them.
But. The biggest detriment, superhero movies and the young adult fantasy movies that have kind of accompanied them and come along with them of the last 15 years, the biggest detriment that they've done is that that's now what people think fight sequences are. People now think fight sequences are about rubber CGI people bouncing off walls or being thrown through walls or being thrown through windows or being thrown whatever. There was even in martial arts movies where like clearly they're doing moves that no one can normally do and clearly they're being hurt in ways that humans wouldn't come out of. There's a grit and a pain and a story and a dance and stuff like stuff's happening
still the best
choreographed.
Still the best fight scene I've ever seen was, well, a couple of them actually, but in the second Bourne movie, where the two of them go at it in the kitchen, and Matt Damon's got a magazine and the other bloke's got a knife.
Right.
And there's no soundtrack, it's just them hitting each other with the magazine and punches and the moves and the dance. It's like so incredibly intense, completely brilliant.
Right.
And no one gets thrown through a wall.
Right.
It's like he's hitting him with a magazine.
Right.
It was completely... Oh, and the first one where he does him with a pen.
Right.
It's completely brilliant.
But like, action sequences now, even in movies that aren't comic book movies, just look like comic book.
Yeah.
And it didn't help that the 3 trailers we saw beforehand were for like, oh, it's another empowered, super half robotic young adult woman who's going to be like fighting robots in a dystopian future. Oh, wait a minute, there's a young empowered 20-something woman who's going to be helping fighting with bumblebee robots in a dystopian future. Oh wait, there's going to be a young, like, we saw how many trailers like that tonight?
Yeah.
And it's fine. Give the kids what they want. I mean, honestly, anything to shut them up.
But throw a few crumbs to the crumblies.
Yes, I like it. Throw a few crumbs to the crumblies.
This is what we.
And I think this Overlord is definitely my reaction to Overlord is definitely a product of being fairly long in the tooth where genre films are concerned. Like if you've watched what I've watched, you go into Overlord going, I've seen this, I've done it. Like without the
okay, but then my reaction would be, I don't think I've ever sat through an entire Nazi zombie film. I know there's plenty out there, and I think I've watched like 10 minutes here and maybe 20 minutes there, but I've never sat through a whole one. But I think what you pointed out about there's 2 movies next to each other and they don't know which story to tell. Like what they want to do is they want to tell the exciting story and then like graft zombies onto it. But they're 2 different movies. It doesn't work like that because one's an action film and one is like a horror film, and it's not like action horror. You know what I mean? Where it can be
But I also needed to
where
feel...
like you're having an action film against horrific elements.
Right.
It's like they want the scares, and they want like the grossness. Like they try to marry it with like the grimness of like war. Like wounds and damage from war, like when they get blown up by the grenades and they've got like I like that bit. Like they got half a leg and that was kind of fun. And then the gross gore of horror movies, and that's where they went. Well, that's where the link is. That's how we link these two things. Like those bits that were like really gory and really gruesome, that worked really well. And I get why I'm watching this film now. Those bits, I get it, right? That makes sense. That they would live through this. This is just like a heightened thing of what they all had to live through. I get it. I'm on board with that. But I think I think your soundtrack thing is a big part of it. I don't think that they knew, because the genre film is about, listen, you're going to watch this film and then this is how it's going to unfold. And because this has been done so many times before, we know we're onto a winner in terms of rhythm and pace and excitement, and we're going to take you along on that ride again. And this one was like, well, a little bit of a ride from over here and a little bit of a ride from over there. So you can't do that with genre film. You can't take bits of pace from here. No, I'm not saying elements. I'm not saying elements. I'm saying structure.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Like that's what they tried to do, and they put the two structures together.
You could have done.
So you end up with something that doesn't work.
What you could have done.
You can have the elements of one structure with like thematic elements, or
but let me explain what I mean. If I felt the ticking clock, like we must blow up the tower by this time, and even though he said the time repeatedly, I never felt I thought like, they can blow it up anytime. Like I didn't have that feeling.
Yeah.
And it's because in a war movie you would cut to the general somewhere being like, oh my God, the planes are almost there. Is he going to make it? Is he going to make... Like you would intercut with that, and you never did. You never saw anyone on the Allied side worrying about whether the planes would get through or not. That was never... You never saw that. You only ever followed the men. And I feel like you could have the ticking clock of we have to destroy the tower in order to make D-Day happen with Nazi zombies work if, like at the end of Back to the Future, even though you've seen it 100 times, it's still incredibly nerve-wracking because you're trying to get Doc to just simply plug the two things together, right? And the reason why it's a super simple thing, but it built, you know what I mean? Like there's a tree on the line, there's a thing coming along, he has to go up on the clock tower. Like there's things that suddenly have to happen. You could make the zombies or the underground lair that they find themselves in or whatever, the thing that keeps standing in their way, right? If that's how you play it out, if like, I've almost got the thing in the thing that's going to make it blow up, like I've got to stick this one thing and this other thing before it blows up, but oh no, someone's grabbed my leg. Meanwhile, the generals somewhere on the hill being like, why isn't the thing, the tower still standing? But what I mean is, you could do it and have exactly the same movie just with the pace and the build-up and all the rest of it, of that thing.
Right, but that's exactly what I'm saying. That what you're talking about is therefore a war movie where the elements of the war that are going to... So the thing that they have to get through to get to the castle, the stuff that's standing away from doing the time is like elements of a horror film. That totally works. Right. But I'm saying you've got the structure of the war film, which is we have to get the ticking clock thing, with the structure of a zombie film, which is, now you have to face off against the bad guy. Right. And it's like, so on one sense, like, hang on, am I worried about the ticking clock? Also, or am I worried about the bad guy that's coming back?
How do you have...
It's like you can't have the two things at the same time.
The After Movie Diner with John Cross will return right after this.
Okay, so this week's ad break is simply to inform you about Jim Wallace, his book of poetry, and his podcast tour. That's correct. You can purchase his book of poetry by clicking the bloody great banner ad for it on aftermoviediner.com. The book is called Are You Hurtling Towards God Knows What? And it is by J.E.A. Wallace, available from Amazon, and will be shipped to you on December 4th when the book is released. Jim is also doing a podcast tour currently, and the latest episode of the Motern Media Infomercial Podcast, that's the Motern, M-O-T-E-R-N, Media Infomercial Podcast, has him on it as a guest, and he is fantastic, talking about his poetry, his lyrics, his music, his co-hosting of this very podcast, all sorts of stuff. It is a fascinating, funny, fantastic interview with Jim Wallace. It's finally coming out from underneath my baggy and shitty shadow to put the spotlight on himself, and it couldn't have come at a better time. We all need Jim Wallace's fantastic writing at this stage, so please go over to aftermoviediner.com, click the banner for his book at the top and purchase it. And while you do that, listen to the Motern Media Infomercial Podcast. The latest episode just came out the other day with Jim Wallace on it. It is truly a revelation. And coming up, don't forget to look out for the Hold the Mayo podcast with our friend and yours, Jay Mayo, hosting another interview with Jim Wallace all about his book. I'll be listening to both. You should be listening to both. You should listen to both anyway. You should just subscribe to the Motern Media Infomercial Podcast and the Hold the Mayo podcast. Just subscribe because they're fantastic episodes every week. But this week and then the upcoming month, listen out for Jim Wallace talking about his book on the Motern Media Infomercial Podcast, episode out now, and the Hold the Mayo podcast episode coming soon. It really is absolutely fantastic. And now, back to our show. Yes, if you want to hear an ad read out in the middle of the After Movie Diner for your project, your website, your podcast, your album, whatever it is that you do, if you want to hear an ad read out in my bad English tones in the middle of this show, then please go over to patreon.com/aftermoviediner, and for the $3 or more per podcast show package, I will read out or play a promo for your site, your store, your podcast, your web series, or anything that you want on the show at least twice a month for 3 whole months. My goodness, what a deal. It's basically free advertising, except that you have to pay me. You also get an After Movie Diner mug worth $17, a thank you and a mention once on the show. So why don't you go ahead and do that? Announcer Spike will tell us how.
You're listening to the sweet sounds of the After Movie Diner. Support us at patreon.com/After Movie Diner. Or I'll punch you in the teats. Rate and review us on iTunes, Earthling.
How do you have an evil Nazi SS officer and an evil Nazi scientist, and at no point have them do some big grandstanding speech about whatever,
about the great thing they're doing, especially the scientists?
Like the thing, for example, the first Captain America does so well. Yes, please. The first Captain America, one of the things it does so well. Thank you. Apart from finding the character that Chris Evans was clearly born to play, but it gives you Hugo Weaving Herzogging it up to the max. Right. And every time you're a bit like, oh, this is a bit of a substandard, mumbling along World War II thing. Suddenly, in strides Herzog Red Skull, Hugo Weaving, who knows entirely what movie he's in, right? Doing this amazing speechifying every time, about whatever it is. We will have streets of tanks and things with the bombs and the thing, and you're like, oh yeah, Hugo, keep talking. Like, how do you have? Because he really looked the part, and I know most of the time the SS officer was like just being beaten up by Russell, which also got a bit ridiculous. But how do you not have him just do it? Like,
how is that
an amazing speech?
Can I say something else? It was a bit when Russell's kid was like putting the when he put the serum in. I thought, cool. It's going to be like two fucked up, like unkillable, crazy people going at each other in a fight.
Yeah.
And then that didn't really.
I'm good. Yeah.
Then that didn't really lead anywhere either. Like,
no.
It wasn't a very impressive fight. It was in a very small area.
Yeah.
They just threw a couple of punches.
Yeah.
And like that was it. It wasn't really anything. It
Yeah.
ended really fast.
Yeah.
Because they had to. Because that's the thing. Instead of it building to a bit where you make a horror film, it builds to the final fight. You go, oh, well, he's going to come back then. Like the guy's going to crawl out of the rubble and have to. You know what I mean? Like that's the horror film climax. We go, oh no shit, we've got to have him kill the bad guy because we've still got to fit in the setting off the bombs to bring down the tower and having him escape time, which is another thing. They keep going between the structures, which means you're losing all the momentum of whatever you just got to, and then shifting over to another thing.
But look, they did it. They.
I know it sounds like okay. Here's the problem, right? Here's the problem. It sounds like we didn't like it. We sat there and we watched the movie and we did really enjoy it. It's just that when you make a film which has got like loads of atmosphere, and when the effects are really good and the acting's really good and the story's really strong, it's really frustrating when it doesn't work. And you want to think.
Well, no.
You want to think and talk about why, when you put these things together, why didn't it like?
Let me put it this way.
Why didn't it lift off?
Let me put it this way. You know, there's a movie, Halloween 2018, another perfect example. Let me explain.
Right.
Where people love it. People just fucking love it. Oh my god, it was so good, blah, 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 blah. And you watch it and you go, I can't even figure who would like this.
Right.
It's a bit like Trump being president. You know what I mean? Like you
Yeah,
look at it
yeah.
and you just go, I can't. There is no part of my brain that can put. I can't put myself in any position where I'm like, that's my man. And it's not about his policies, and it's not about what party he's running for, and it's not about who's around, whatever. It's looking at the man and going, I don't understand that, whatever that is, right? The same with Halloween. We watched Halloween, and I'm like, I don't understand how that made hundreds of millions of dollars, and people wrote paragraph after paragraph about how amazing it was. And I don't understand how Jamie Lee Curtis went around saying that it was this hugely empowered woman and blah, 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 and all of it. I don't. I watched the movie. I watched the same movie as everyone else, and I do not understand. This one, if someone came to me, if like an 18-year-old came to me and was like, oh, I saw Overlord, it was bloody great, and the zombie Nazis and the fighting and the gore and the thing, I'd be like, yeah, I would totally understand why someone with, not even with limited genre knowledge, but just with like a certain type of genre knowledge, who grew up on Marvel movies and, you know, the Hunger Games or whatever. This is their Reanimator, and I totally understand that. But I've seen Reanimator and all of Reanimator's sequels multiple times. So it's not going to have that effect on me. But if someone comes to me and says Overlord was awesome and I really fucking enjoyed it, I understand why.
Yeah, okay.
So that's the difference for me.
Yeah.
This wasn't a movie that I came out of and went, well, I don't understand why this was made or why someone would like it and it was awful. It's a movie where I came out of it and I've gone, I totally get it. It was really, like, the effects were great, the acting was great, it was filmed adequately enough that I could see most of what was going on. The sets were really great. The atmosphere was good. The characters were fine. Could have done with a few one-liners, and I could have done with some soundtrack. But overall, good. You've done your job. But it just, because of...
B-, I'd probably give it.
Yeah, but because of knowing how much better genre films can be when they're made with a sense of pace and a sense of fun and a sense of style, it just didn't blow my skirt up. But if someone came to me
it had to
and
have one
said,
or the other, right? It had to either be more fun,
Right.
or have more style.
But that's how
if
I
you're going to
feel
be
about
serious, then you've got to lay on the style a little bit. Then it's
Right.
got to be like
Right.
up your metaphors. Do you know what I mean? Like
Cast-
throw a few things in there, give it a little bit of meat.
cast Gary Oldman as the mad German scientist,
Yeah.
have him do one amazing speech that brings the house down, and as he's doing the amazing speech, have like some mad zombie creation of his own creating, like rip his neck off or something just as he finishes the speech,
something he, like, kills
and then
the-
have him die in like molten fire or whatever while doing the Nazi salute. Like do something like. But there was the other thing as well. For a genre film about Nazi zombies, there was none of the Nazi exploitation that I demand. There was no like goose stepping, there was no like Zig Heils, there was no like mad speechifying. I want all of those things. I want them all now. I also kept thinking as well, like if Spielberg and Lucas had any balls, this is what Indiana Jones 4 should have been. It should have been, because all the other Indiana Jones Nazi ones are all about, like, they're trying to obtain eternal life, or they're trying to, like, make the ride go on forever with the Ark of the Covenant or whatever. It's only a bit more of a leap that they did some scientific discovery where they made Nazi zombies. And how much more would you have preferred to have seen Indiana Jones running around, like, punching Nazi zombies?
I already want to see that movie.
Right. Rather than whizzing Aztec alien heads.
Yeah, they just doubled down on the wrong thing. I understand why they did it, but they doubled down on the wrong thing.
Yeah.
They thought that people liked the film because of the idea of, I don't know, like daring do, and like, it doesn't matter what the MacGuffin is. But weirdly, Indiana Jones is mostly about the MacGuffin. It doesn't work when it's not Nazis. Like Temple of Doom was the same. For some reason, it has to be Nazis. It just doesn't work.
Right.
I don't even know why. It's just, that's what a good Indiana Jones movie looks like. Sorry,
but they have to be hand-wringing, sweaty-necked, pince-nez glass wearing, comical Nazis. That's what they have to be. They're not like, I don't want any like realistic, Jew-hating Nazis. I want comical, goose-stepping, mad, leather pant wearing.
It's very similar.
Zig heiling.
It's very similar, the Indiana Jones thing, to Star Wars too, in the sense that Lucas thought that Star Wars was all about all the mythology and all this bollocks, right? But it wasn't. Like when he turned the heroes from being like gribbly, like nobodies who couldn't afford a packet of soup, trying to kind of get their shit together enough to stop being overrun by evil bastards. That was fun. But when it's like they're wandering around like GQ models in, their perfectly tailored fucking Jedi suits in their, bejeweled corridors of, wealth, going, I think we've got a bit of a trade problem out west, or whatever. Like, that's not fun.
Yeah, nobody cares.
I don't give a shit that they can lift up a car or whatever, a fucking hover thing with their hand. I don't care.
Right.
I care that they get into fights in, like, dingy bars.
Right.
And I have no idea if they've got enough money, do you know what I mean, to cadge a ride to the fucking Death Star. Like, these are the people that we, for whatever reason, that's the Star Wars film I want to see. And that's why the J.J. Abrams ones are better than the prequels, because they're all like gribbly nobodies without two beans to rub together. It's just better. And same with Nazis and Indiana Jones. And as you rightly point out, if you're going to make a film about Nazi zombies, then the zombies have to be wearing Nazi uniforms.
Yeah.
Preferably the full black SS number.
Yeah.
With like disintegrating faces coming at you with whatever. Like that's not like, I don't know, like, I don't need to see zombies' abs. Do you know what I mean? Like, they don't need to be shirtless zombies. When they get like, check out my abs, check out my zombie
Well, they were
abs.
meant to be super soldiers, to be fair.
Yeah, but I can get their super soldiers because they're dead and they're trying to kill me. That's a super soldier needs to get.
Yeah,
it's something like,
right.
yes, but their musculature was very unrealistic for a super soldier. Like, what, I have super soldier ab standards now?
But that's what I mean, is that if you remove the gore, it's like Captain America.
Yeah, you're right. That's
versus the Red
Skull.
Skull.
Right. It's actually the kind
without
of
the fun dialogue.
You're right. It actually would have been a better film if Abrams hadn't gone anywhere near it. I mean, I think some of his instincts were good. Like, don't put big names in it. Let's try and keep the mystery.
Like,
keep it R-rated. Right. All those instincts were good.
In fact, you're right. The bit where the best bit in the whole film, was when the main SS officer had like a second in command lackey who only ever spoke German in the movie. I don't think he ever spoke English. And he had one of those really like, oh, you just know this guy's a shit kind of face.
Yeah.
Right, and probably a bit pervy and just generally when you saw him. Thanks. And when he was driving around on his motorbike, right, and he's chasing her, and then it was an ambush, and they ambush him, and they strap him to the motorbike with a grenade in his mouth with some duct tape, which was only weird because I don't know if duct tape was around in World War II. Was it? Maybe.
No, maybe.
But anyway, he rides into the camp, and there's like a big bag of detonator, like whatever it is, dynamite, whatever, in next to him in the sidecar, and he's like, like nodding at the thing, and a guy comes up to him and like removes the tape and pulls the pin out of the thing, and then he's like, "Woo, woo, woo," and then his head blows up, and then the whole castle starts to blow. When it cut to the guy rolling around, like grabbing his severed leg, I was like, that whole sequence.
Yeah.
They're kidnapping the guy, pushing him into the camp, the comical, he's trussed up and going, like there's bombs right next to me. Why are you being so ridiculous and stupid? Run away, there are bombs. Right? And then he blows up. His head coming off, them all blowing up, and the guy grabbing his
Yeah, it was
leg.
a great.
That was the best sequence.
All the like goriest bits, the bits where they kind of doubled down that, they were great, and I did enjoy it all the way through. I was thinking, I am enjoying this. It's just one of those things.
We're old, dude. We're old.
Maybe that's it, mate. But we enjoyed Hunter Killer.
Yeah, but Hunter
Maybe
Killer
we can only handle one genre at a time. Stop mixing up your genres, you young whippersnappers. I want a submarine movie, or I want a horror movie, but don't give me a horror and a submarine movie.
Well, actually,
which they did once, and it wasn't very good.
Do give me that.
Because they did that once, and it was rubbish.
But
It shouldn't have been rubbish. It should have been awesome.
I feel like I have to applaud this one.
Yeah, I know.
Only because there are too few and far between movies like this that are getting into theaters. There are plenty that are being made for like Shudder on a shoestring budget with half a turnip and a can of beans. But there aren't many that are being made on a relatively decent budget that are getting the kind of audience that this is sort of. And I do like a good sleeper hit, and I really do hope that this is one. And we're not seeing enough
Do you mind if I make an
R-rated
observation?
thing. And I'll say one more thing.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of J.J. Abrams directing. I'm really not. However, I'm a huge fan of the fact that he's a fan of genre films. I really like that he remastered Phantasm, and I really like that he produced this movie. What were you going to say?
Well, I was going to say, we felt like the knock-on effect of like Movie Pass's brief, year in the sun, was that we saw more small cinemas playing like old genre films that we've been crying out for them to do. I wonder if the AMC thing goes into effect, right, in any kind of a wide way, not even like super wide, but where you're increasing.
You're talking about the AMC.
So yeah, you pay 20 quid, you get to watch 3 movies a week. What I'm wondering is, AMC mostly are like big multiplexes, right? So I wonder whether there's now not a way, if you've got your 8 multiplex cinemas, that you want films like Overlord for to be on for a week or two on one of your screens, like something a little bit different, because hey, the AMC premiere people, they already saw like the big movie that's been out, they've seen like the second big movie that's out, we need to give them that the C picture that we're playing on the smaller screens,
right?
Because now there's actually an audience for that now, because there's people that you don't just have to get them into the door for your Marvel or whatever. Like, hey, they've basically got these free cinema tickets,
right?
You know what I mean? Like, for a couple of times a week. So I wonder whether films like this might not have let's spend $5 million. Like, we don't have to pay big money for acting, right? We're used to, I'm assuming that the Bad Robot people are used to working on like TV kind of budgets, like Hitchcock made Psycho, that kind of a thing. Like, let's use the people that we know and know their onions, and let's make a quick, $5-6 million, or I mean probably more like $10 million picture, right? That in the cinemas alone, let alone we can probably sell it for a few mil to Netflix or whatever around the world. So we just need to make like a little bit of its money back. And now there's all these cinemas that before wouldn't take it, and now they're all hungry for stuff because they're actually filling up the cinemas. So I'm just saying, it's a possibility, mate.
And Jim Wallace's new podcast, Hungry for Stuff, debuts on iTunes.
We mostly are going to be discussing what the stuff is.
Yeah, what the stuff is. So, to wrap it up then, go see it if you want to support this kind of movie. I would suggest it, but don't expect the moon. Jim, you have, we didn't mention this earlier, but you have a book of poetry coming out. Why don't you tell us all about that? You're going to be a published author.
I am. Well, let's talk about it more next week, because I feel like people might... I mean, how many people get to the end of the podcast? That's my only concern.
Well, I could tack this on at the beginning if you want.
No, it's okay. We can just talk about it next week. I mean, next week's... Where are we? It's not coming out till December 4th. So we could just talk about it briefly and properly, like maybe the beginning of the next
Okay, but tell everyone what it's called and what's
It's called Are You Hurtling Towards God Knows What?
Are You Hurtling Towards God Knows What? Follow at J_E_A_Wallace
For news and updates
for news about the book.
Which will be coming out, December 4th.
Has anyone asked you about the podcast yet on your Twitter?
No.
No one's done that yet.
No, they haven't.
But lots of people have followed you though.
Yes.
But no one's reached out and said...
No, but then people don't reach out to you when you've got even more followers than I do. You don't even ask... Like, I'm basically a middleman. When you directly appeal to them just to reach out to you, they don't bother.
Right.
When you're asking them to reach out to somebody else,
right.
Never going to happen.
Also, check out the After Movie Diner this week if thee be loving the 80s, because we have Robert McNaughton from E.T. and Zach Galligan from Gremlins, both Spielberg related films, interviewed by our roving reporter Aaron Carruthers.
Cool.
On the website, up now for your reading.
Your website is fucking unstoppable, mate. There's so much on there. People don't even know. They go up there.
Yeah.
There's interviews with directors and actors. And there's film reviews. There's podcasts. There's everything there.
Everything,
There's
mate.
so much. It goes back years.
Years, it does.
People haven't even scratched the surface.
Haven't even
website,
pulled off the scab of the After Movie
And they probably
Diner.
shouldn't.
Just plugged it
Just
in
rub
the
it a bit.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
Don't pull off the scab because then you get that
Rub the
horrible pus that comes out, and nobody wants that. And what I'm trying to say is
Pus.
that our reviews are horrible. No, that's not what I'm saying.
No.
Aaron Carruthers did a sterling job interviewing both Robert Norton and Zach Galligan. So go read it, go retweet it, go share it. Come on, guys, help us out.
Yeah.
Help us out. It'd be super helpful if you could.
You bastards.
Thank you. Quickly then, I watched Apostle. That was the other thing I watched on Netflix. It's made by the guy who made The Raid and Raid 2.
Oh yeah, I really liked it.
And it's got Dan Stevens in it.
I enjoyed it hugely. I'm not perfect, but like I admired the commitment. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean it. Why was anyone in it doing any of the things that any of them were doing? I mean, there was no basis for any of it.
No, I'm not sure I agree with that. I think it was supposed to be about...
No, it was on one hand, guys get shipwrecked on an island and find that there's like some witch living in a thing somewhere that if you like feed her blood, stuff grows, right? One of them had the guts to do it and one of them didn't, right? And then they build up like some phony religion and then like are bringing people... If in order to even grow a flower, let alone crops, and by the way, this hasn't been working for a long time, right? Hang on a second. For a long time, right? And the only way to even successfully get her to grow flowers, let alone any actual fucking food, is to feed her human babies, right? Why are you bringing more people to your island? Why are you just not going like, wait, I have to feed her babies to make my crops grow? I think I'll just go to a place where crops grow. I mean... But none of it made any sense at all.
I understand where you're coming from, but I don't think it was supposed to be... it was supposed to have narrative logic in the sense that there was a lot of weird metaphorical stuff going on, which was about like settling actual places. Especially inhospitable places, like it could have taken place in, like, you know, like the Dust Bowl. You know what I mean? It could have been. They put it on like a Scottish island, which I imagine probably is fucking hard, especially if you're trying to grow things there. I mean, I think Scotland has stuff going on.
But here's my point.
Right.
Here's my other point. Right, okay, I'll take your narrative logic argument. One of the comparisons of the movie, quite wrongly, actually, is The Wicker Man. People have made that comparison, and it's completely wrong. But the reason why The Wicker Man succeeds is because you understand why people would fall under the thrall of Lord Summerisle. He's incredibly charismatic. He's actually offering things that people want, They're living in a way that is pleasurable and joyous to them. And there isn't like some dark, seedy underbelly where, like, you know, there's internal power struggles and, you know, everyone's poor and no one's eating and everyone's scratching their heads as to what the fuck. It's just that once every year they have to have a sacrifice, and they all make it a big part of their... hang on a second. Whereas in this movie, from the get-go, no one is preaching anything that anyone would be remotely interested in. Everything is grubby and grimy and unappealing, and no one has anything. The two main guys, your man Sheen and his other fella, were constantly at each other's necks. People were constantly being killed and tortured and God knows what else around them. Like there was no... There was like... It's one thing to be like, oh yeah, but they're all... You know, religion, eh? It's a bit culty and a bit weird, isn't it? That'll do. Like, no, what? Like, you have to tell me why all these, like, middle-aged and old people are on this island living in abject poverty and being told to be behind closed doors at night while their children are dying. Like, you have to explain to me why that's anything that anyone would do. And that's where it didn't work.
No, that's fair enough. I don't dispute. The reason I enjoyed it was I felt pretty early on that it reminded me a bit of The Raid, in the sense that I felt like it was more of a kind of a dream-like, nightmarish. Like, it's not that things made sense; it's just that things happened, and that it felt to me more like what it was talking about was how people find themselves in weird, grim, awful situations, making horrible compromises and feeling trapped and like there's no way out, and they don't seem to have any agency, and all they can do is sort of go along with, you know, what the people that they've decided to follow who are in charge. Because clearly it used to be
there
good.
Wasn't any of that.
I agree. No, listen, I agree that what you're talking about, all those things were missing, and it would have been better if they were there. But for whatever reason, he decided to make the movie, to set the movie at a time when the paradise had already fallen apart. So in other words, whatever had brought them
you're being way
there,
too fair on it, but yes, okay, I can understand why you saw it that way. But like, I understood the story they were telling.
No, I'm not.
The story they were telling was Dan Stephen comes to get his sister, and
I
finds on this island there's a whole bunch of not only mad religious types, but also a witch.
I get where you're coming from. You're not wrong, and you're not wrong to not like it. Look, it's the same thing as Overlord, right? If you said to me, I watched Apostle and I didn't think of it.
Sure.
I watched Apostle and I didn't like it. The story didn't make any sense. Why was anything happening? I would not in any way try and argue with you. I would not say, oh, you're wrong, or I think you missed the point. I would say to you, yep, I totally get why you felt that way, because you're completely right about all of it. I
understood everything, why everything was happening.
No. I'm not saying you missed anything. It's exactly what I'm saying. I don't think you missed anything, right? I'm not saying, oh, if you'd watched it in the way, I'm saying the way I experienced it was, for whatever reason,
right,
that narrative logic, all those things that were missing, just didn't bother me. I just felt like I was being taken along on this ride.
No, they didn't bother me while I was watching it.
The mood of it. But that's the thing, I was also aware as soon as it was over, best not think about it, that the experience of watching it was all. There's nothing to reflect on that. Do you know what I mean? That's kind of how it felt.
But it's.
But I don't think you're wrong at all.
And I would tell you what I would do. I would argue that
struggle.
I would
struggle to recommend it to anyone. I wouldn't say, hey, have you seen a good movie? I'd go, yeah, you should watch Apostle. It's brilliant.
No, I wouldn't.
I wouldn't say that.
And I would also argue, I think The Raid and The Raid 2 are very well structured and make complete sense to me, and very well acted. Whereas this one was more. This one again was like trying for a genre movie and had all the traits you expect from a genre movie: female exploitation and torture and violence and gore and a weird witch with trees going into her veins and a mad cult religion and You know, it had all those aspects, and it knew how to do all those aspects. When, we have to have a mad cult religion, great, check. We have to have a witch in the woods, check, because that's kind of within this. There are plenty of like Eyes on Fire and various different movies that have that kind of theme, especially of the kind of Pilgrim era and the kind of start of America and that kind of era.
Well, The Witch
has a lot of the Witch, but the Witch was derivative bollocks. But
no, that's not. No, that's no. The Witch is in the one that was just out.
The one that just came out is so boring.
I loved it. You know that every line of dialogue was from like actual like either diaries or reports from the time. Every line.
Okay, doesn't make it. Anyway,
I think that's amazing. Anyway, that's fine. I loved it.
You know, we have to have some gore, and we have to have an old torture device, and we have to have this, and we have to have women in peril, and blah, 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 blah. And it knew how to do all those things. It just didn't know why any of it was happening. Or how to frame it in a way that made any of that engaging to watch. And the weird thing about Dan Stevens is, because it was the same with, wasn't he in The Guest? I want to like him. Like, I think he's a good actor. And I think he's got an interesting face. And I understand, again, why people like... He's kind of like one of those genre stars that people are, like, looking to be like the next Campbell or the next Kurt Russell or the next whatever. And I don't mean in a goofy sense, but just in a kind of...
Yeah, I get it.
Stick him in a leading man role in a genre film and he'll probably do all right. But I couldn't get with him on this or The Guest. I
really liked him in The Guest.
I see why people like him, and I'm like, I get it.
I like it because he looks like a leading man, and he's got a whole kind of like, I'm cool. I'm not cool and calm and collected, but there's something really weird and dark in the middle of him going on. All the things I really liked him, the Guest, and he was the lead in the TV show Legion. The first season was amazing, and he was in that. It was the same thing. It was like. He's like charismatic and charming, while at the same time being like there's something that's not right about that, like something dark in the middle, and not in a compelling way. In a.
I got it. No, I get it. I do get him, but at the same time,
I agree with you. I didn't think he was that great in this.
I don't know.
It's okay for you not to enjoy stuff.
No, I know. I just wish I wasn't
so grumpy.
No, I just like.
You like the stuff you like, man. You like plenty of new things. All we did last week was talk about how great How to Kill It was.
Oh, I know, but...
We're capable of liking new things. It's just... We're not going to be blown away by everything.
Films today are being made by the people who watch the films I love, but they like them for reasons other than why I like them. Well, they like them because they're like... They like them because they go, oh, that's a really cool camera move. And when I watch it, I go, that's a really cool camera move. But I look at it and I go, that's a really cool camera move, and X, Y, and Z, this is why that works in that place, and da-da-da-da-da, and why it was original, and why it was fresh, and why it was new, and so on. Rather than, that's a cool camera move, let's just do that with the camera. Or people who watch Evil Dead trilogy and be like, oh, isn't the gore amazing? I'm like, yeah. But that's not the point of the Evil Dead trilogy. I just feel like everything I watch, I'm like, I know why you've done that. You've done that because you watched Reanimator and you loved the bit where the guy got all veiny, puked blood and ran at the door. I get it. I understand. You're like, well, let's do that. Let's have him go veiny and puke blood and run at the door. I get it. I get it. But if that was your only takeaway from Reanimator, then.
But isn't the problem, like at its heart, that when you see that and you see Reanimator, you're reminded not only of a movie that did that better, but a movie that did that first, and in a way that when you first saw it, how it affected you, you weren't sitting there, in some kind of through way going, oh, I'm very much appreciating the more. You just loved it. It hit you at a gut level.
But when you stepped away from it, you could also put the pieces together and understand why it worked.
I know.
As you got older, you could be like, rather than being like, well, why do I like the way that happens? You could figure out why.
I get what you're saying, but
did I just say the same thing?
No. here's the problem, right?
I'm so tired.
Here's the problem. These things that we watched, that we loved, especially when we were teenagers, the genre films, are at their heart, right? At their heart, a bit silly, a bit derivative, and a bit samey. It's not necessarily a bad thing. I will watch a Nicolas Cage film about driving the devil's automobile or whatever. Like, and it'll be fun. I'll enjoy it. But they are supposed to be empty and fun, right? There's dark things driving. There might be dark or interesting things driving the people that are making them. You know, who really want to say something and use this, you know, slightly silly derivatives to make a point. But there comes a stage in your life, especially when you've watched as much as you have, that when someone does the same thing, like I'm expressing something and I'm using these things I'm taking from other places and whatever, that it's hard to see past, you know, the things they've thrown at the screen into whatever it is they're trying to do, especially when what they're trying to do is make something fun rather than, you know, deal with something complicated or weird. I guess what I'm saying is that for people like us of our age, like I think there's a reason why you gravitate towards like richer, more complicated novels, for example, rather than, you know, flippy spy books or I think the older you get, the more you crave things that have more depth and ambiguity. And even if you showed that same thing to a 19-year-old, they go, this is fucking boring and stupid. But when you're a bit older, what you're getting from it is it's richer because it is more ambiguous and because you haven't seen it before and because it is trying to express something and reach something true rather than throw together a great sequence, right? And just maybe we're starting to reach that point where the people who made a lot of movies that we loved when we were teenagers were just trying to make something cool and fun and entertaining and make money, right? And we admired that and its honesty and we liked it, we thought it was cool and it resonated with us. But the older we get, the less we're able to be entertained purely by people who only want to take our money.
That's all I'm saying. I just.
That's fine. That's okay to disagree.
I disagree. I think that the filmmakers I like who made the genre films that I like from the 70s and 80s were definitely movie fans, definitely influenced by movies, definitely loved the language of movies or whatever. But each one of them strove to change it, expand it, do something different. Now, they had the luxury of being in a period of movie making where practical effects and camera effects and things were coming into their own. And everyone was experimenting. It wasn't just, you know, Raimi down in Tennessee or, you know, John Landis making American Werewolf in London or whatever with your man doing the special effects. I forget his name.
Stan Winston?
No. My brain is fried. I can't even think. But, you know, everyone was trying everything. You know what I mean? It was like a really experimental time and everyone was like putting it together. And I think the issue now is this, is that everything is available now at a relatively cheap price, whether it's CGI, whether it's prosthetic effects, whether it's fake blood, whether it's small cameras, whether it's whatever. Everything's relatively cheap and available to most people. And so, and most people, I think, realize that most stories under the sun have been told multiple times at this point. So it's more that in a movie like something like Overlord, this is not a movie that was made in someone's basement for 50 grand that he scraped together from cousins and relatives and dentists and whatever, where he was like, by hook or by crook, I have to get this into a theatre. This was a movie that was made, with probably $10 or $20 million of a studio's money, with, a good CGI budget, a good prosthetic effect budget, a good camera, and all the rest of it. Where I'm not saying people didn't work really hard on it. They clearly worked really hard on it, but they worked really hard to make a movie that already had a release date and a marketing budget. They weren't making a movie that had to pin someone to the back of the seat and wow a studio head in order to get distribution. And because they're fans of movies, and because they're fans of genre movies, and because they've watched the same kind of movies we have growing up, they're like, oh yeah, we have to have a bit with a kick-ass chick and a flamethrower. Oh, we have to have a bit where, we run through the thing and it's a bit like Evil Dead 2. Or we have to have a thing where this guy's head blows off, or whatever it is. We have to have this thing where it's a bit like Reanimator. Because they have the luxury to do so. They're not trying to convince anyone of anything other than, here is a Nazi zombie war movie. Let's make that as efficiently and as well as we can make it. They're not trying to convince anyone of anything else. The marketing machine goes, well, we know how to do that. We know how to do this.
I would
so let's put it together in a way we go.
I would agree with you.
I think the real stuff is still being made on an independent level. But I think it's harder and harder and harder to see it, despite all the platforms. I think with the best one in the world, I'm not going to go through Amazon Prime, and unless I know Charlie and Farley or whatever, unless I know the filmmaker, I'm not going to go through Amazon Prime and watch, every zombie movie on the off chance that there's a budding Raimi out there, because I'd have to sit and watch, 150. Well, movies like the one I made, I'd have to sit and watch 150.
No, I know, I agree with you. I wonder whether the problem is, and I was thinking about this when you were saying about, why they steal the things they steal, why they do the things the way they do them. And I was thinking about it in terms of scripts as well. I think there's a feeling that, especially when it comes to a $10, $20 million movie, like you're saying, that there's now this belief that there's a formula and that you can write a film and direct a film and produce a film correctly.
Right.
But you can make all the right decisions, and when it's all said and done, you'll come in under budget with a movie that appeals to this audience member A and this audience member B, and attracts this genre fan of all that kind of thing, where everything, research, marketing, everything has been, all the right decisions have been made. And I work in that industry, right? I work in TV. I don't work in the production side of it, but I've seen firsthand all these TV shows that get made, right? Like take Preacher on AMC. Preacher on AMC, they spent a shitload of money. They've got a hot production team, funny writers, cult comic book with a big fan base. And everything about it was we're going to get it directed right, and we're going to get it written properly, and we're going to get all the right actors, all those things, all the decisions made. And it's it doesn't do very well. And it doesn't do very well because it's got no heart and it's got no soul. That's why it doesn't work. They've got a guy who's basically a grizzled, seen everywhere. He's already lived a life, this guy, and yet somehow he's ended up as a preacher. But the fact that he's lived a life is entirely key to his character. And he's like a 32-year-old pretty boy. He hasn't fucking lived. So this character makes no sense. This is inherent emptiness. It says to them, well, the research says we need this kind of person in the role with this kind of history, and that will appeal to blah blah blah. So that's the lead character taken care of. Instead of all the people you're talking about, Carpenter, Cronenberg, whatever, everything for them was from their gut. They knew in their head, I want the guy to look like this or feel like this. You know what I mean? When he's on camera, like Jimmy Cagney in Public Enemy. Jimmy Cagney was supposed to be the best mate, and the pretty boy best mate was supposed to be the lead. And they started the camera roll. As soon as Jimmy Cagney just was on the film, they went, he's the fucking lead. Right. What's going on with this guy? He's a short, weird-looking motherfucker who's got charisma you wouldn't believe. Bogart as well. What is going on with these guys who look like that and yet have that much charisma? And none of it's heart and none of it's soul. And yeah, heart and soul doesn't get you everywhere. But that's why Reanimator, strikes that chord with you, or Evil Dead or whatever. It doesn't matter if they're trying to be silly. Like, they're making it with heart and with soul, and the decisions they're making are based on that, not on will it appeal to X, Y, Z. And because there's so much money involved.
Although weirdly, and this is the other funny thing, is that in Evil Dead, they went to a bunch of drive-in theatres, and they noticed that if there was ever a quiet moment, or if the blood stopped flowing, or if someone stopped screaming or whatever, people would start honking their car horns, or they would fuck off to the concession stand, or they'd start making out or whatever. So they were like, okay, so once the horror starts, it has to never let up, right? And what's funny is that is an entirely a thing that is driven by, we want to make a movie that plays in the drive-ins that gets people to just fucking be pinned to the screen and watch it, right? And we've learned from doing this that this is what it is. But then what Raimi does with that, which is so interesting, is instead of taking it away and going, all right, fine, all I'm going to do is the most horrific shit you can possibly imagine for 90 minutes and just go, here, have that, is he takes that edict, right, once it starts, have it build and have it never stop. But in that, he does like incredible inventive things, either with the camera or with the makeup or with whatever, which is where he goes, as long as I'm working within these parameters, I can be as creative as I like within these parameters. And the problem is with nowadays is that they have, first of all, too many parameters. I think you're completely correct that it's all market tested before it even gets shot. Secondly, I don't think anyone has faith in any script anymore. And I also don't believe that anyone in charge of movies thinks that script matters. Because I think way too many people go, it's a Nazi zombie movie, just put a bunch of people in it, get some blood on the screen, put a Nazi over here, have a plane there, do that, and away we go. Like, there's no thought about character or screen or dialogue or anything like that. I honestly, I know Hunter Killer, we said, knew what it was doing in terms of like pacing and scripting, and it did. But I can't remember the last time I truly saw like a good script, like,
It's a good,
and that's the other thing, is when you watch movies from the 60s, 70s, 80s, and even the 90s, even if they're bad movies, the scripts are good. The characters have things to say. People interact. People have either one-liners, or they have dialogue, or they have paragraphs. Like, stuff's engaging. People are saying stuff. And even nowadays, where people talk about like, the golden age of television, and I'm sat watching some of these TV dramas, I'm like, no, who's writing this shit? It's like, there's no... Indiana Jones is a movie about like daring do and punching Nazis, but the scripts are awesome. The dialogues are awesome. The acting is awesome.
Right, but weird enough about Indiana Jones, this is interesting, right? The thing about Indiana Jones is...
I mean, the good ones.
Yeah, but the weird thing about the Indiana Jones good movies, which is what you would not expect, is that all the things that make Indiana Jones great, including like the script and the big moments and everything, it was George Lucas, not Spielberg, and not the scriptwriter. It was all Lucas, because Lucas had a very firm idea of what he wanted to make. And so Spielberg had to fall in line, and the scriptwriter's like, okay, and how do I make that thing that you just said happen? How do I make that pop? How do I make that work? But not like, it's like, how am I going to use the gifts I have, which is being a scriptwriter, to make that thing you just said happen and like live on the page so that it can then get filmed? But it's all him, it's all his vision. And I think you're right about Raimi, and like Raimi had a question, but it was his question. How do I make a film that, pins them to the cars for the whole movie? And how am I going to do that? It's not like, well, market researchers come in and it's noticed that people aren't paying attention.
Right.
So we've come up with these, because Overlord's problem is, like you say, it's like it's trying to be like two movies at the same time, because they've gone, these, B movies are big, and what I tell you what they do. And I thought this as soon as that title came out. I thought, what this is a balloon for what if we go back and make exploitation films again? What if we go back and make old 70s, like over-the-top weird horror films, mashups again? Can we do that? Is that a thing? Because horror's big now. Like, that's what they've noticed with the Krasinski one and It and all the rest of it. Like, even Happy Death Days. Like, I get it, that's fine, but like, 10 years ago, that doesn't get a cinema release, do you know what I mean? But now it's like, oh, you want horror? So they go, okay, where do we get horror from?
Right.
And we can't just keep remaking things because like that doesn't actually seem to work. Like they tried that, it doesn't really work. So what are we going to do? Well, why don't we raid? What about 70s? Like they made lots of horror films back then. So what are they doing there? Or they're like mashing together action films and horror films. Why don't we try that? And that's all it was. It was a balloon. Can we basically go back and raid the 70s for movies that we can make for 10 million? Can we do that? Is that a thing? That's all it is. It's just a business plan. And I don't mind it. That's what it is. It's all about making money. But it used to be like guys who didn't give a shit, who didn't think, who all they knew was what makes money. And it was calculated risks and gambles. Let's give Carpenter 2 million to make a film. Like, maybe, it's going to have knives and boobs in it, so that should make my money back. And then if it makes more than that, then I'll use them again. Like, that was it.
Right.
That's their plan. They didn't care about it. All they cared about was, do I have enough cigars? And...
But I'll say this, and this is the last thing I'll say. The thing that struck John and I when we were doing the Woods and Wallace series.
Right.
And the same can be said for almost all the people in Carpenter films as well. And actors like your man Sam Neill and people like that. There is no planet on which we live anymore where anyone even remotely like Peter Weller or James Woods or Sam Neill or Wilfred Brimley or whatever gets to be even anything more than a featured cameo in a film these days. You're just not, and it ties into there is something. It brings a certain integrity to a film to have people like that. It's a really great example. Look at the original Jurassic Park, and then look at Jurassic World, which may as well have been a reboot of Jurassic Park, right? You've got like Samuel L. Jackson sits there and like smokes and is grumpy and like swears.
Newman
and
from
whatever.
Seinfeld.
You've got Wayne Newton. You've got Richard Attenborough, right? You've got Sam Neill and Laura Dern, who, they're both indie actors. Like Laura Dern is known as like David Lynch's muse at that point, and Sam Neill has just been in some he's been in The Omen 3 and he's been in some other weird like genre films and Carpenter films and Mouth of Madness and various other stuff. Like it's like Sam Neill. Like you've got Peck character, who's like that British explorer type who shows up. The only one who could even remotely be considered like, I don't know, poster boy attractive, and even that is kind of with an arched eyebrow and an irony, is Jeff Goldblum, who up until that point had been a gangly freak in every movie that he'd been in. Right? They just gave him a leather jacket, dark glasses, and some normal hair for like 30 seconds, and he becomes a sexy man. But you look at the cast of that, and what fun everyone is having, and like this mad idea about like dinosaurs coming back and da-da-da-da-da. And I'm not even a huge fan of Jurassic Park, I'm just using it as an example. You look at Jurassic World and Chris Pratt and Blanderson.
Actually, there's the second one too, because in the second one it's like, Richard Attenborough's lost business partner, and he's supposed to be British, and a bit like, what's he up to? And they get James Cromwell, like bloke out of Babe. You go, no, like corrupt Irish cop who you can't trust. Get James Cromwell on the phone. If you need a police captain from the 1950s you don't completely trust, call Cromwell.
Right.
But not like kindly old, because they were clearly going for who's like Richard Attenborough, and your answer to that is James Cromwell.
Yeah.
Are you telling me there isn't some white-haired, freaky Brit out there? Fucking just call Gambon. He's bound to be free.
Oh, Gambon would have been amazing.
That's what I'm saying. So, Cromwell's trying to do a British accent. What? What's that film where someone's trying to be British and they just give up? No, it's Statham, when Statham tries to be American. Yeah. When he tries to be American, come on, Jace, you're not even trying this sentence. You gave up on this sentence being American. It's like that with Cromwell. Anyway, but yes. I agree with you. It's just like, what's going on with the world where the talent pool for like gribbly old Brits is like that shallow? Because it's not.
Right.
Anyway, listen, we should go because we've been talking for hours.
Well, thank you very much. What a way to end a podcast.
Yeah.
We should go. We've been talking for hours.
Well, I'm sure that's what people are thinking.
I don't care what people are thinking.
Yeah, fair enough.
I'm having fun.